Where do you find good information about the core stuff of Christianity? What do we mean? How do we know? And what difference does it make? As a Baptist minister, I've summarised it onto just one page for you. In this series, I'll walk it through so that you can make a well-informed decision about life's core stuff. Welcome to the One Pager. Today, we'll look at the blue ring. How do we know there's a creator from science? Now, there's a lot in this session, so you might have to replay bits, but here goes. The Bible's first sentence is, "In the beginning, God created." The whole Bible's about that creator. And it even says God's qualities have been clearly seen in what he has made. Now, for many, this is obvious. Design points to a designer, like a building points to a builder. Creation points to a creator. And by the way, suffering doesn't stop creation pointing to a creator, because breakage doesn't stop a building pointing to a builder. So in a sense, everything is evidence, which brings us to science. Science came from the Christian idea that God made the world orderly and knowable so we can study how things operate. Operational science. But naturalism has made an assertion that you can't invoke the supernatural to explain the natural. But in real scientific investigation, you don't exclude a possibility that might yield the truth. So surely you can invoke the supernatural to explain the supernatural. And that's precisely where science takes us. For example, entropy plus relativity point to the supernatural. First, entropy tells us that we must have started, because it says all physical systems lose usable energy over time. Unless you add energy, like a campfire dies down over time. Overall, the universe is winding down. And therefore, since the universe currently has energy, we know that at some earlier point in time, energy must have been put into the universe. That means we were started. Second, relativity tells us that we were started by something. In E equals mc squared, the equal sign is critical. Energy and mass can interchange, but the total amount remains the same, which means you don't get something from nothing, only from something. And since we're mass and energy, something started us. Plus, physics tells us that the starter must have been big, because to get something as big as our universe, only something as big as what we conceive of as God would have enough energy to put in to produce what we've got. So now thirdly, entropy plus relativity tell us the starter must have been other dimensional. Why? Because before the start, there was nothing. No matter, no space, no time, nothing. And yet relativity says we must have come from something. So if there was nothing physical, then that something had to be beyond physical. Something beyond space, matter, time, before there was any of those things. Beyond physics, beyond entropy and relativity. That is supernatural. And it seems the universe expanded much faster than light speed and yet suddenly stopped in a perfect balance. So that something that must have started us worked beyond light speed and inertia as well, other dimensional. Now, good science is telling us that the starter must be supernatural. By the way, this addresses the question, who created God? Because since the natural universe is subject to physics, entropy says the natural has to have started. But since the supernatural is not subject to physics, entropy does not apply. So reasonably, the supernatural does not have to have started. And this allows for an uncreated creator who always was, always is, and evermore shall be. So natural observable science points us directly to the supernatural. Plus, observable science points us to the supernatural the more we discover. Our big other dimensional starter is also apparently mindful of us. The Goldilocks Effect means everything is just right for our existence. So imagine a control panel of thousands of dials for all the parameters necessary for our existence, and each one has to be dialed up just right, otherwise all the other ones don't matter. And against all probability, every single parameter is just right. And it's not just the thousands of specific parameters like our distance from the sun or the gas mix in our lungs that have to be just right, and there are many of those. It's also the timing and the proximity of them. And then add in the origin of life, The chances of this alone have been calculated at 1 in 10 to the power of 57,000. And there's not even a viable natural process proposed for it. And then add in the origin of complexity and diversity in life, let alone how we got a balanced biosphere. And then add the origin of our mind and cognition and morality. And then how is it that the laws of physics themselves are just right? And yet every single dial is perfectly dialed. Now, natural chance just cannot reasonably explain this. But supernatural design reasonably can. And if that's not supernatural enough, every new parameter discovered only increases the likelihood of a supernatural creator. So mostly, science is just natural observable science, but that's hardly all there is to reality check. We still need to check if there's a creator behind and throughout the natural world. And we do find that observable science does point us beyond the natural to the supernatural, to a starter that's big, other dimensional, and mindful of us. And that sure does sound like a creator to me. And this has been clearly seen in the things he's made. Contrary to popular belief, there are thousands of details in science that point to the supernatural. But we've already seen enough to make that point. And if other fields of knowledge also point in that same direction, then we really have to take a closer look at where they're all pointing. So next time, we'll look again at the blue ring and ask, how do we know there's a creator from reason and religion and experience and history? So join me then on the one-pager where reality checking life's core stuff makes sense.